Welcome to the explainer that is literally going to change how you look at buying a used electric vehicle in 2026. If you've been sitting on the fence about going electric, well, good news. The secondary market has matured into something incredibly fascinating and honestly highly lucrative if you know what you're doing. We're going to break down the hard data, the true costs, and the exact metrics you need to zero in on. So let's just dive right in.
Right now, with so many of those early EVs hitting the secondary market, you might be wondering, is taking the electric leap today actually a smart, cost-effective move? Or is it just some hidden trap waiting to completely drain your wallet? Look, for years, the narrative around used EVs was all about the fear of the unknown. But looking at the data for 2026, the picture is so much clearer. We have a robust history of how these cars age, and more importantly, we know exactly what separates an absolute steal from a total liability.
Now, to really understand the used market, you've got to look at the new one first. A massive 28% of all new cars sold globally in 2026 are electric. I mean, we are talking roughly 23 to 25 million units this year alone. So what does that actually mean for you as a used car buyer? It means the secondary market isn't just some tiny niche for early adopters anymore. It's totally flooded with mature, highly varied options, as all those millions of EVs sold 3 to 5 years ago are finally coming off their leases or changing hands.
Here's our quick roadmap for this explainer. 1. The 2026 used EV boom. 2. Pros versus real risks. 3. The battery health rule. And 4. Your ultimate buyer checklist.
Kicking things off with the 2026 used EV boom.
The sheer scale of infrastructure growth lately is just staggering. I mean, the world has rapidly pushed past 7 million public chargers right alongside more than 43 million private home and workplace chargers. Honestly, finding a charge is practically a non-issue in most major cities today. Plus, the financial incentives have totally shifted. In the US, that federal EV tax credit ended back in 2025, which naturally has buyers looking way harder at the used market for savings. Meanwhile, a bunch of EU countries actually expanded their subsidies in 2026. Throw in some wildly unpredictable gas prices, which recently hit a national average of over $4.06 a gallon in the US, and the everyday math for going electric is, well, it's pretty hard to ignore.
Moving right along to the pros versus the real risks.
Without a doubt, the most compelling pro year is the steep depreciation savings. Think about it. A brand new 2026 Nissan Leaf, that's going to run you around $30,000. But a highly functional, used 2018 or 2019 model is currently retailing between roughly $4,700 and $10,000. Let someone else take that massive initial depreciation hit. That price gap is absolutely huge. The depreciation curve on electric vehicles works incredibly well in favor of the used buyer. It gives you a way into electric driving for a mere fraction of the showroom price. Add in the fact that EVs have virtually no routine engine maintenance, no oil changes, no spark plugs, and your running costs just plummet.
You can spot fantastic deals pretty much across the board right now, from a Model 3 sitting in the low 20s to a Hyundai Kona priced well below its new sticker. But you've got to pay really close attention to the tech differences. For example, that Nissan Leaf has a passively cooled battery, while the Tesla and the Hyundai both feature active thermal management. And trust me, that distinction is absolutely huge.
So, the crucial takeaway here is understanding your biggest potential risk, which is the technology sitting inside the car. Specifically, you need to know if it uses active thermal management. This is a total game changer. It's a system that uses liquid cooling and heating to maintain the battery right at its sweet spot, its optimal temperature. Why is this so critical? Because it significantly reduces long-term battery degradation. Older, passively cooled designs, like those early Nissan Leafs, they basically just air-cool the battery, and that can lead to way faster wear and capacity loss, especially if you live in an extreme climate.
You also really have to factor in your local environment. Cold weather can severely slash your driving range if the car is missing an active heat pump. Without one, you'll be sitting there watching your battery percentage just drop while shivering in your seat trying to save power. Nobody wants that. Newer models handle the cold so much better. And beyond just the weather, you have to think about regional service networks. Like Chinese brands such as BYD have a massive global footprint. They are fantastic options in places like Latin America and Southeast Asia, but getting service or finding parts for those imported vehicles can still be a bit of a headache in certain Western markets.
All right, let's get into the battery health rule.
The golden rule of buying an EV, if you remember nothing else, is this. The traditional odometer reading matters way, way less than the diagnostic battery state of health, or SOH. When we buy gas cars, we are totally conditioned to look straight at the mileage. But with EVs, the traction battery is literally the most expensive component in the entire vehicle, and its condition can vary wildly between two identical cars from the exact same year with the exact same mileage. It all comes down to how they were charged and where they were driven.
You are definitely going to want to memorize these specific state of health zones. If a car is in the green zone, which is 85 to 100% SOH, you've got a solid buy. In the yellow zone, 75 to 84%, well, you don't necessarily have to walk away, but you absolutely need to negotiate hard on that price. But if that diagnostic comes back in the red zone, meaning below 70%, you are looking at a very high risk of needing a costly pack replacement pretty soon. And we are not talking small change here. Depending on the exact model, swapping out a degraded battery pack can run anywhere from $6,500 to well over 10 grand. Seriously, do not guess on this metric.
Which brings us perfectly to our final section, your ultimate buyer's checklist. We've actually distilled all the expert recommendations down into a really simple chronological 6-step checklist for you. First off, verify that SOH using the manufacturer's app or a trusted third-party tool. Second, review the charging history if you can get your hands on it. Heavy, everyday use of DC fast charging, those super fast highway chargers, that actually accelerates battery wear from the heat way more than just gentle overnight home charging. Third, skip the standard mechanic and get a full electronic diagnostic of the high voltage system from a certified EV tech. Fourth, double-check that the car's plug actually matches your local network, like the standard CCS in Europe or the Tesla-style NACS in North America. Fifth, physically inspect the underbody for any impact damage to the battery pack, because that can be catastrophic. And finally, check if that super valuable 8-year or 100,000-mile battery warranty actually transfers over to you as the new owner.
Ultimately, this whole structured approach is just to help you figure out if a used EV even makes sense for your life right now. I mean, it's a fantastic fit if your lifestyle is mostly local urban driving, you have reliable access to home charging, and you can park it somewhere sheltered. But you definitely need to think twice if you're stuck in a freezing climate with only street parking, if you have to rely on a sparse network of public fast chargers, or if you just don't have a budget buffer for potential out-of-warranty repairs.
The secondary EV market has honestly never been more vibrant, more affordable, or just better documented than it is today. The era of guessing is completely over. So the question I want to leave you with is this. With thousands of dollars in depreciation savings just sitting right there on the table, are you going to keep worrying about outdated odometer readings, or are you ready to test the state of health and steal an absolute electric bargain today?